Welcome to the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, produced by the Caribbean Leadership Program under the Caribbean Center for Development Administration, CARICAD, where we provide a number of leadership development interventions tailored for the Caribbean context in support of public sector transformation as well as regional development. In this Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, we will be discussing a range of leadership issues within the public sector context which impact our national and regional development in the Caribbean.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership. Here's your host, Dr. Lloyd Parks.
In today's episode, we are going to be looking at the topic of the challenges of political leadership, and we are delighted to have with us the Honorable Tracy Panton from Belize. Ms. Panton is the Minister of State in the Ministry of Economic Development, Petroleum, Investment, Trade and Commerce. She was elected as a Member of Parliament in November 2015 and is the first woman to have ran and won as the area representative for the Albert constituency in Belize City. It is very important for you to note that she is one of two elected women who are currently serving in the House of Representatives in the current government administration. And she has direct oversight for the Investment, Trade and Commerce portfolio. She is an influential leader in the tourism industry in Belize for some 30 years, although if you see her, you would not believe that. And she served as Belize's Director of Tourism for 12 years and as Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Civil Aviation for 3 years, just prior to her decision to seek electoral office. Her stewardship of the Belize's tourism sector is one of excellence. Under her watch, the industry became the fastest growing economic sector in Belize, and that sector became the catalyst for the country's sustainable development, guided by the first of its kind National Sustainable Tourism Master Plan. And that is the blueprint for tourism development in Belize through to 2030. And we are delighted to let you know that she is one of our esteemed alumni, where she did our second cohort of our leadership development program here at the Caribbean Leadership Project. Madam Panton, it is indeed a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and it's really a pleasure to be with you.
Start off by telling us, how did you make that transition from working as Director of Tourism, coming into the public sector at the CEO level, and then transitioning into political leadership?
Let me say, Lloyd, that I have always had an interest in serving Belize and being a part of my country's national development. I was able to do so in tourism and also in a lot of the community-based initiatives I was involved with. I was also the national president of the Belize Red Cross Society in this country for several years. I felt at the time that we needed to have women needed to have a greater say at the policy making level. That while we sit in office as the chief executive officers or directors, that we have a place in management, we weren't affecting the policy changes that are required to ensure that women's voices could be heard and to be heard loudly, and policies that would affect both women and families. And so for me, it felt like the next step in terms of my own professional development and in my desire to serve Belize in a way that would be meaningful and would impact the lives of our women and children.
From where you sit, what are some of the major leadership challenges that are facing us in the Caribbean at the political level?
You know, it's still a man's world, particularly in politics in the Caribbean. So there are definitely there's a stigma, if you will, for women who want to enter political leadership, even though women have always been the backbone of our political parties here in Belize. You know, they do all the campaign work, work on the logistics for men to be elected. There's still not a general acceptance by the wider population and even by our male counterparts to embrace this idea of women in politics. So the gender biases and gender stigma is a major hurdle. There's also the issue of women supporting women in the way that we need to support each other so that we can sit at the table with our male counterparts. And of course, there's the issue of financing for women who wish to get into the political ring, if you will. There is a disparity in how finances are allocated for women and how finances are allocated for men counterparts. And so for me, those have been the three things that have been hurdles that have been difficult to cross, not impossible, difficult to cross. There's also, if I can add, that as women, we have to have an undeniable, unshakable belief in ourselves that we have the capacity to do the job. Many of us wait for validation either from our male counterparts or from our women colleagues, but you have to be fearless in your approach if you want to take on a leadership role, political leadership role in this region.
I consider you, certainly, to be a successful female political leader. How did you yourself deal with those particular challenges that you describe?
To be honest, I felt that those things were meant, those challenges are not unsurmountable, that you just had to push through. You had to we have to assert ourselves, be aggressive if we need to. We have to also find a way to engage our male counterparts without them feeling threatened by our presence at the table. And so developing those relationships were particularly key. We're still working, or I am still working, on the notion of having women support women, those who are in the lower house of parliament, but also those who are in the upper house of parliament, so that we can develop that critical mass, if you will. You know, women have unique challenges that our male counterparts don't face. You know, we have homes to take care of, families to nurture, and those things are not that it's not as important, but certainly in the society where I live, women take on those roles. And so we have to find that balancing act, if you will, between jumping the hurdles and being able to do the things that have become traditional for women to do.
Minister Tracy, hold on to that point about the kinds of hurdles that female politicians have to deal with. We are going to pick up on that topic when we resume after this very short break. Stay with us.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership.
Across Caribbean public services, there is great demand for transformational leadership to create an environment that fosters innovation in public service delivery. But how do you know if your organization has this enabling environment? Grounded in research, the Caribbean Leadership Project has developed an enabling environment assessment. This provides a wide range of strategies and actions to help take public sector organizations and regional institutions to a higher level in enabling transformational leaders. To find out how you can use this assessment to foster and inspire purpose-driven leadership, to build leadership capacity for action, encourage collaboration, and support the achievement of results, visit us at www.clptoolkit.org and contact us at info@caribbeanleadership.org. Let us help your organization learn, network, succeed.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership.
You're listening to the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, and today we are looking at the challenges of political leadership, and we are so delighted to have with us Minister Tracy Panton, Minister of State in the Ministry of Economic Development, Petroleum Investment, Trade and Commerce in the government of Belize. And just before the break, Minister, you were sharing with us how you yourself overcome and continue to grapple with and address the challenges that women face in political leadership. Continue to share some of those points you were making about how can you get other women to support women in political leadership.
There has been an attempt in Belize to really get women to focus, and in the Caribbean as well, to focus on taking on greater roles within political parties and also taking up the mantle for political leadership. One of those initiatives in the region is called Women in Politics. And I know there was a pilot project in Belize, and I know in other countries they've also had where women have been able to sit down and look at our leadership approach, how we are able to address some of the challenges we face as a group of women. And I think that kind of initiative, that kind of movement, if you will, has really helped to refocus the conversation and to lend greater support for women. It hasn't gone far enough because we haven't been able to field more women candidates, which I think should be the objective of those types of initiatives. But it has helped us to look critically at some strategies we can employ to be able to really speak directly to our male counterparts and get the general population to see that we are capable to do the job and doing it in a way that is not necessarily equal to our men, different on our men. Women have a different approach to how we make decisions and that kind of thing, but that it would have the same type of impact on our populations and the communities we serve. It is time for a more compassionate approach to leadership, and we have to get in the game. We can't say as women that we will allow our male counterparts or others to say that we are not good enough. We know that we are, and we just have to push forward in terms of allowing our voices to be heard and to breaking some of the barriers that we face.
I had mentioned earlier that you are a graduate of our leadership development program. Speak to us of some of the benefits that you personally derived from participating in that program, particularly in terms of how it would have helped you in your, not just your leadership when you were chief executive officer, but also in your political leadership.
The program, the Caribbean Leadership Development Program, for me was absolutely insightful and, for lack of a better term, life-changing, because it assisted me as a leader, as a potential leader, to really examine myself and to really look at how people perceived me as a leader and what I needed to do to better engage those that I hope to lead. And so the art of truly listening, not just to what people were saying, but the intention behind the messages that they were relaying were important. It helped me to look at myself holistically, right? So at my emotional intelligence, the things that trigger me, and also what I could do in terms of improving my skills, particularly in areas that are important to the constituency that I serve, whether it's a tourism constituency or whether it's now my divisional constituency. How can I best listen to the needs of the people and be able to translate that into policies and strategies that will help to best serve them? And so that whole program, being able to sit with my peers from around the region, listening to the unique and sometimes the very common concerns that we share as leaders in our communities, was very insightful and instructive, and really helped to propel me into taking that quantum leap step into seeking political office.
one of the things that we are grappling here with at the Caribbean Leadership Program as we continue to expand its reach and looking at the needs of the region is that we want to look at how do we offer interventions that are suitable, targeted at political leadership, because political leadership is different from any other type of leadership, particularly for someone who comes from a completely different work background outside of the public sector and you enter into the public sector at the political level. It really is quite overwhelming. If we're honest, you're starting to deal with a whole range of stakeholders you hadn't thought of before. You're dealing with competing interests. You're dealing with very limited budgets, and you name it. The list goes on. What recommendations would you have for how we could craft interventions targeted at helping and supporting our political leaders in the region?
I think a key element that may be missing or that I would find helpful is finding ways to strengthen the network of the cohorts that have been a part of this program and those we can engage in terms of leadership development. That we have to be part of a group, an ideology, if you will, that transcends countries and really helps to connect people. We share common interests, we have common challenges, and being able to easily communicate and share and seek support from counterparts throughout the region, I think would be absolutely helpful. The leadership development, those of us who have had the good fortune of being a part of the leadership development program also have a critical role in trying to nurture young leaders that are coming behind us and getting them involved in leadership training and leadership development. If there's a particular skill, there's a particular art, and programs such as leadership development program really help you to hone in on those skill sets and that kind of tactics and strategies that we need to employ to be effective transformational leaders. And so I think that we need to continue to expand out and continue to have access to our counterparts in the region so that we can continue to build on the success that we have already seen as a part of this initiative.
Minister Panton, we're going to continue on that point after we take yet another short break. We'll be right back.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership.
Does your organization have leaders with the self-awareness and confidence to lead effectively? Can they develop high-performing teams? Can they work effectively with multiple stakeholders? And are they equipped to navigate change and complexity? For these and other leadership challenges, the Caribbean Leadership Program offers a suite of virtual, face-to-face and customized interventions to meet your needs. Our 5-day workshop on leading change and transition will provide senior executives with the mindset shift and tools to successfully lead change initiatives. Our transformational leadership development program is ideal for preparing high-potential leaders for succession to executive roles. And our mid-level leadership development program is perfect for those leading from the middle. For details on these and other offerings, visit our website at www.caribbeanleadership.org. Join us to learn, network, succeed.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership.
Welcome back to the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where today we are looking at the challenges of political leadership. And we have with us Minister of State in the Ministry of Economic Development, Petroleum, Investment, Trade and Commerce, the Honorable Tracy Panton from the government of Belize. Minister, you have had the unique experience of leading at different levels of the public sector. And one of the ongoing challenges of leadership in the public sector is really navigating that interface between political leadership and civil service leadership. I can remember one former minister from another Caribbean territory. He described a government minister, for example, as being a man or a woman who is in a hurry. Not in a bad sense of the word, but in a hurry to fulfill the promises made under a political mandate, and is usually impatient with the pace of things as they tend to happen in the public service traditionally. Having led at various levels in the civil service at the political level, what are some of the challenges that you have experienced or observed in navigating that interface between political and civil service leadership? And how do we make that working relationship more effective?
Let me say, Lloyd, that I also have the benefit of having worked for several years in the private sector in Belize. So I transitioned from being in the private sector to being in the public sector. And I think the most important thing is an issue of building trust relationships that in terms of that interface between political leadership and civil society. As politicians, we think in 5-year terms, right? We have a 5-year term, and we have an agenda which is laid out to the people at the beginning of our term that says these are the things that we want to accomplish. And we work assiduously at getting those manifesto promises fulfilled. It is important that along the way, as we work at achieving these goals that we have set for ourselves, that we keep the dialogue open with the private sector, that we continue to be direct and forthright in what can be done and what cannot be done, that we respect our civil society leaders, that we listen to their concerns, and we try as best as possible to take those concerns into account when we formulate policies or make decisions that affect the ways they do business or affect the constituents that they serve. So it is really about being open to a process of consultation that is meaningful and that takes their concerns or their inputs into account as we try and work on fulfilling the commitments that we have made at the beginning of our term. Sometimes, Lloyd, it means that we need to not come off the path totally, but we need to make a deviation in terms of we were approaching that particular problem this way because we thought that it is the shortest way to getting to the end result. But sometimes the road needs to take a little longer so that we can take into account and really listen to our civil society partners. Politicians obviously can't do it alone. We were elected by the people, but not to disregard the input that they provide to us as we continue to fulfill our mandate.
As you look at the future of Belize and indeed the wider CARICOM region, what recommendations do you have for strengthening the capacity of political leadership in the region, particularly in terms of having more female political leaders in the region?
I think it's absolutely critical that there are more women at the table. In Belize, for example, our population base is almost an equal split. 50% of our population base are women and 50% of men. Yet more than 80% of our political leadership posts are held by men. And so we need to continue to empower our women, support our women, train our women, open new opportunities for women so that we can have a seat at the table where there is going to be mutual respect, that there will be some equity in the way we treat our women leaders versus the way our male counterparts sometimes commandeer the process.
But if I may interject, Minister, every now and again, people would kind of tongue-in-cheek tease me, wouldn't you go into political leadership? And let me be honest, it seems like a most unattractive thing to get into. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but you have to admit that to most women, it seems unattractive. How do we make political leadership attractive to women?
I think we just need to ensure that women continue to be respected in terms of what they bring to the table. That the women who are now in office continue to support other women in their ministries, open new opportunities for those women, nurture our young girls and women to take on leadership roles, whether in their church community, in their wider community, continue to be the kind of support system that is required so that we can get to a critical mass that is required to effectively affect policies that serve that side of the population well. Not only for women, for our young people. They are the leaders of tomorrow, and we need to continue to invest in our young people, help to expose them as much as possible as we can to the issues that we are tackling and how we approach those issues so that they themselves can have a voice at the table. It's important. We need our male counterparts. They have led the way, but we have to also ensure that our women know that they are capable of doing exactly what our male counterparts are doing, and maybe bringing new ideas to the table that will help to advance our societies.
Minister Panton, it has indeed been a pleasure. We want to thank you so much for sharing so openly and generously about the challenges of political leadership, particularly for women. You've been listening to the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series. Please check with this station for other episodes in our series. To learn more about the Caribbean Leadership Program, please visit our website at www.caribbeanleadership.org. Thanks for joining us.